the theoretical challenge that makes people doubt it when they're thinking about the problem theoretically goes something like this. Take a dangerous criminal activity like speeding on the St. Cross Road near the pedestrian crossing, right? It happens to me sometimes when I'm on the pedestrian crossing, and probably I sometimes cycle furiously towards the pedestrian crossing so that I'm on the other side of the divide. But this is a dangerous act, right? And sometimes, let's say it's 2 in the morning, sometimes when you're speeding towards the zebra crossing, there's nobody on it. And sometimes when you're speeding towards the zebra crossing, there is. And if you're really a dangerous type, sufficiently oblivious to your environment, you are, whether you hit the pedestrian or not, can be presented and thought of as just a bit of chance. Same kind of driving, same kind of speed, same kind of conditions, same kind of oblivious driver, different result. And people, when the point is put to them that way, they say, oh well, then whether a pedestrian is hit or not shouldn't be thought of as part of as a distinction that should be drawn between crimes. So in other words, we shouldn't charge one of these people as manslaughterer and another as endangerer of life. And in the intentional case, by analogy, we shouldn't charge one as attempter and the other as succeeder. We should think of the attempter and the succeeder as morally on a par. We should think of the endangerer and the manslaughterer as morally on a par. And so we should have only, in each of these cases, only one charge, and it shouldn't contain any reference to the result. Now, the thought that underlies it, I think, is this, that, and this is how it's sometimes been expressed in the literature, though I'm not expressing it with great conviction, because I'm not sure we should ever have expressed it this way. But the thought is that culpability must be free from luck, or at any rate from this kind of luck, from luck in the way things turn out. And a debate about something called moral luck emerged in part from Bernard Williams's formulating the problem that way, and then worrying about whether the implications of what he had just thought were implications that he could tolerate. Now, one reason why I'm unhappy about the formulation is that I think it presupposes the existence of something which doesn't exist, namely what we might call culpability in the air. That's to say, that there's a quantum of culpability that attaches to each culpable thing that we do, and that it rises and falls with certain factors. But it's in the air in the sense that it's not relative to anything. I'm just going to explain in more detail what I mean by that. Because I'll explain it by suggesting an alternative view. The alternative view is that we need first of all to identify the wrong that somebody is alleged to have committed. We have to identify the wrong first, and then we can ask, armed with that information, how culpable were they relative to that wrong? That's to say, were they a more culpable or less culpable murderer? Were they a more culpable or less culpable thief? Were they a more culpable or less culpable endangerer of passengers? Were they a more culpable or less culpable blackmailer? We can begin to ask those questions once we're armed with the first piece of information, which is which wrong is it that's supposed to have been committed? This is not culpability in the air anymore. Culpability is always tied to some error in action, which I'm calling wrongdoing. So if that's true, then we should start to frame our question at the very beginning a little bit differently. Rather than asking the question, is it possible for the results of our actions to affect culpability, which I think presupposes culpability in the air, we should ask, is it possible for the way our actions turn out to affect which wrong we commit? Now, you may say, well, obviously it's possible because the law says it's possible. Murder is different from attempted murder, and manslaughter is different from endangering people's lives in the law. But of course, that's not the level at which people want to ask the question. They mean, morally speaking, is it possible for the way that our actions to turn out to affect which wrong we committed? And they think that question is important because they don't think the law should well, at least all else being equal, start making a difference there unless morality recognizes the difference too. They don't think that the law should draw apparently moral distinctions that couldn't be moral distinctions. So if it couldn't be the case that there's a moral difference between somebody who murders and somebody who attempts to murder, all else being equal, or between somebody who manslaughters and somebody who endangers life, all else being equal, they don't think those could be moral differences. They tend to think, and one can see why, that that distinction also shouldn't be drawn in the law, at least not without some special supplemental argument to show why, for example, people are going to be deterred better by one rule than by the other. Some social policy argument. So I'm not going to discuss the social policy arguments, which seem to me not to be very powerful. So the question is, can the way our actions turn out make a difference to their moral wrongness? Which wrong they are? And that question, well, this is a big sort of game of pass the parcel, because each question can be rephrased as another one. That question can be rephrased as the question, can we distinguish morally between two classes of duties? Because a wrong is just a violation of a duty. One class of duties is a duty which builds in bringing about or not bringing about, success or avoidance. And another class of duties is that which is concerned with, well, what do we call it? Endeavor or not endeavor. With what one brings into the world rather than what one puts out of the world. Morally, is there a distinction between these two kinds of duties? Are there two such categories of duties in moral life? Are there ones that are characterized by endeavor and ones that are characterized by achievement? I should always add the negative. Endeavor or non-endeavor, achievement or non-achievement, just to be complete. Now, of course, there are going to be some duties, if both these classes of duties exist, there may be some that are hybrids that contain elements of both, so I don't want to get sidetracked by that, but I think there can only be hybrids if there can be instances of the two types in the pure instantiation.